What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Tactical Foul. We have an emergency podcast that we had to do because of, well, the Rodri injury news and how this is going to impact the greater world of football. But before we talk about any of that stuff, Kevin, my friend, how are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Obviously, a little stunned by this injury. We watched a very good couple of games this weekend that we'll talk about on Thursday. But I'm wearing my Man City jersey because this is breaking. I mean, this is literally breaking because poor guy tore his ACL. And so I wanted to get into that thing, and I just kind of wanted to talk about how this affects all of the other things that we've been talking about this season. Getting into the Premier League race, the Ballon d'Or race,
Champions League.
Champions League. So many things that we need to discuss because we know very well that Rodri is a very key player for Man City.
Probably their key player, right? They don't lose when he's on the field.
Right, 100%. He dictates the game. And I've told you this, you never considered him a high player.
No, that's not it. He's a great player. I want to have this conversation. I want you to say the thing because I've thought about this a lot since the beginning of the year, since he hasn't been playing much, but also about him as a player. And I've come to a realization that what I was saying, while I still believe it, was wrong in a couple of aspects. But I want you to kind of go into that point. But I do want to say that I am going to correct it a little bit. And it's not just because he got hurt. I dislike Man City still. It sucks when a player gets hurt. I hate to see any injury at all. But that's where we're at when it comes to this whole Rodri thing. But you can say it. I'll let you say it. You can throw your shade at me. It's not shade,
I'm not throwing shade, but I know that there were moments where, you underestimated him a little bit. But at the end of the day, he's part of the City system that's very important. He's a key player of that system. We talked about last year him playing 63 games for club and country. I mean, he's very crucial for every team that he plays for, and he plays an important role in the dictating of the game, in the coming out of the ball, in the build up play that goes into that. And City are going to suffer a lot this season, in my opinion, man. I mean, we're talking about their, like you said, their key player outside of Kevin De Bruyne. Like this guy's the guy that controls the team. He's not only that, but I think he has a leadership presence in the team that's just unmatched at the moment compared to other players. And so I think that's a huge blow for City, man. And I texted you that as soon as we brought it up. It's a huge blow for City, and this definitely is going to change the Premier League race. Now, City do have a lot of depth, but and it's true. I mean, you could replace him with Kovacic, right? But the issue here lies
the quality drop.
The quality and the end result. How good is City going to play? How good is City how good is a player going to be? How better is a player going to be than the main man that played that position?
They're a backup for a reason. Kovacic doesn't start for a reason, right? And before we get into all of the opinions and stuff, I just want to go through all of the facts. I want to go through all of the things that we know 100% about the injury right now. Like you had mentioned, the 28-year-old played 63 games for club and country last season. That ended with, obviously, a Euro 2024 win, a Premier League trophy. And here's the thing. Those 63 games are because Manchester City didn't accomplish all of the things that they could have. If they would have, let's say, made it to the finals of the EFL Cup, that would have been an additional 5 games. If they were able to overcome Real Madrid in the Champions League, that would have been an additional 3 games. So he could have played over 70 games in a single season, which is just absolutely insane. That would have put him at 1.3 games per week, every week, all year long, without a break. This was technically the game against Arsenal where he got the injury in the 21st minute of the game, was technically his first Premier League start for Manchester City this year. We don't have a confirmation on what the injury is at the time of recording. The fear and the initial tests show that it is an ACL tear in his right knee. They are going to be doing further tests, but the fear is that it is an ACL tear, and they already have a surgery scheduled in case the prognosis is confirmed in Barcelona. And so those are all of the facts and all of the things that we know about. And I think that we start this from the lowest part of this and we expand it to the biggest part of it. So let's look at the smallest part of this right now. Rodri being gone affects Man City in the biggest way possible, because I honestly think that, well, while they have Haaland and while they have Kevin De Bruyne, and those guys are key players, I think the key player for Manchester City is Rodri, because Rodri gives them so much confidence in the way that they can play their game.
I had talked about the leadership. I mean, that's just something that's unmatched. I mean, Kovacic is going to give you some good passes and some good dribbles and some good playing out. But is he going to have that leadership to dictate those players, to be able to tell the guy on the wing, hey, you're being pressured through these spaces that Rodri essentially can see in the position that he's at?
And it's not just that, but like, you're right. You do lose the leadership that comes from that. But I mean, like, you're not going to tell me that the fullbacks don't feel more comfortable flying up the pitch knowing that Rodri's back there, that Rodri's going to hold the middle there, and that no one is going to get through him, that he's going to be the anchor of that team. And look, I saw Kovacic at Real Madrid for a long time. It's sad that he had to take such a downturn in quality of team to go play for Manchester City. You know, going from the best team in the world to playing in England in the rain in Manchester. I'm kidding. I'm not really, but yeah, I am.
He's half kidding.
Half kidding, that's the right way to say it. But we've seen the quality that he provides, but it's not even on the same level or in the same realm of what Rodri provides. And so the question just has to be, in the biggest picture of this, is Manchester City going to be okay? One of the benefits of Manchester City is that the players that they have are so incredibly good, like the depth. But the reality is, and like the questions that you have to ask is, okay, all of that is true, but how good is the team in those spots? Is this I want to hear your opinion, because I think that they kind of have a perfect answer in house, and it kind of fell into their laps. But I do want to hear, do they have the quality to still be Manchester City, or do you think that they're going to take a dip in performance overall because of the loss of Rodri?
Listen, I think that along with Kovacic, they also have Mateus Nunes, and I like him as a player. I think he'd be a good, and you know, he's more box to box. They have many options now. Inevitably, you have to look at this like a dip. It's going to be a dip in form no matter what. Because, I mean, you can't look at this team and take out one of their most key players and just pretend they're going to play well because of their depth. They have great depth. They have players on players. Like I said, they have Mateo Kovacic that can play there. Ilkay Gundogan can play there. You can have Mateus Nunes that can play there. But essentially, you're just not getting what Rodri gives you on the pitch. And, you know, we're talking about, we've brought up many things. We brought up the leadership. We brought up the vision. We brought up the way that he's adapted thus far to this system. And, you know, we talk about the fullbacks coming up. They're not going to have that freedom because none of these three players that are his replacements can defend the way that Rodri can defend and can anticipate the counters like Rodri can do that. He did it very well for Spain, and he's been doing it now for a few seasons with Man City. So inevitably, they're going to dip in form. Now, my question here is, what team can take advantage of this? Because, I mean, I could talk about Arsenal all I want. They're also hit with an injury bug, and though they're gonna have players come back because they're gonna have Odegaard come back. They're gonna have their new player.
Merino.
Man, I remember Merino. They're gonna have Merino come back. So can
Zinchenko's
Arsenal take
coming back. Tomiyasu's coming back.
can they have can Arsenal take advantage of this? But then also you have Liverpool, who even though they had a dip in form, we've been talking and praising about them for a few.
I wouldn't say it's even a dip in form. One loss to Nottingham Forest is
one
out
loss.
of character, I guess, is the best say. Yes.
It's significant, though. It's not
100%.
a dip in form, but it's a significant loss for them. They are now having to win every single. They don't have the luxury of now drawing the next game. They have to win. They have to win. And so who's going to keep up that pace with Man City? Man City are inevitably going to win, but they're going to have one of those significant losses because of this loss, essentially. You'd have to believe that, right?
I think so. Here's where I understand what you're saying. All of the things that you said make sense. I get it, and I understand where you're coming from. But let us not forget that technically this was Rodri's first start of the year for Manchester City. He did not start in any of the other games in the Premier League for Manchester City. He has 2 starts for Man City this year. It is the Inter game and it's the Arsenal game. Arguably, and I'm not saying it's his fault, arguably the 2 games where Manchester City has looked the worst. Because I know you and I, going into the Inter game, totally expected Man City to win that. And Inter came out and they played hard. And it's the same thing with the Arsenal game. I expected City to go out there and absolutely dominate Arsenal because they were missing Odegaard. And they were lucky to walk away with a draw, Man City was, in that game.
Listen, just
And
real quick, I'm going to just interrupt you just really quick. But I feel like the biggest reason why they struggle with this is because they struggle, and I feel like in general, they struggle with teams that are sitting back. And Arsenal did that, and Inter did that. So,
see, but this is the
talk about a
thing.
team
I don't
going
know
head
if
to
you
head
can
with
say that because the whole Pep Guardiola management tactic is to slowly and methodically and progressively compact the field as much as possible in their zone and then systematically break down a low block with short passes and possession. Look, I think what actually happened here, if I'm being honest, is if you look at Manchester City and you look at any of the pages and you watch those games and you look at the formation that they played, they are primarily playing a 3-in-the-back system this year with 3 center backs.
I feel like that's...
that, I think, is the biggest thing that we're seeing from them. And when...
They've always played that system.
No. They've always played 4 in the back with both of the fullbacks taking turns inverting and pivoting, or Rodri stepping back into being that 3rd center back. But I mean, they're literally playing this year a majority of 3 in the back with Walker not having his pace anymore, playing as a center back, the kind of what he did in England, where he kind of played as a center back.
I don't know
And they're playing a double pivot with, and again, a majority of the time, they've been playing a double pivot with Rico Lewis and Kovacic so that the 4 forwards, whatever combination that they choose, whether it's KDB, Gundogan, Savinho, Grealish, Bernardo Silva, like we know all of the guys that they have up top. Whatever 4 or 5 guys that they choose up top, because Haaland's always going to be one of those guys, so I don't include him. The whole point is it seems like City wants to play with 2 10s, but also 2 6s, and they've got rid of the 8. And the way that they got rid of the 8 is by playing, 2 10s and 2 6s and having a formation that can very easily be a 3 in the back with 7 guys attacking, but also really easy be a 5 in the back with Kovacic and Lewis taking up those middle spots. And I think that when Rodri came back, we saw a change to that fundamental, how they were playing, because, Rodri has been dealing with all of the injuries and all of the fatigue that comes with playing in 63 games in a year. And I think that is where I don't know if losing Rodri is going to impact Manchester City as much as people think it is. I think it will impact them. Rodri is a phenomenal player. But I think that, one, Pep Guardiola is good enough, but two, I think that this team has already started to, it appears to, started to try and figure out a way to play without asking Rodri to be their key player. You can't lose a player like Rodri and expect to be the same. It doesn't happen. But let's go into the Premier League challengers. You talked about Liverpool, you talked about Arsenal. I don't know if either team is going to do enough to catch City.
Here's the thing is I agree with you in the sense that City won't, like City are kind of phasing out that role. And, you know, I've been watching their matches closely, so I agree there. Now, will they? The thing is, they have lots of depth. Inevitably, I do feel like they're going to dip in form, but how much they're going to dip in form?
But why do you think they're going to dip in form? They have been playing exceptionally well without him. This was his first start.
Right.
You know what I mean? The statistics, the games tell us otherwise. It's weird, man. Because I want to agree with you. I want to say that they're going to have a dip in form without Rodri. But they're playing without Rodri. And they're doing... Dude, Haaland has what, 9 goals? 10 goals this year already? And all of those goals and all of that success is coming, well, without Rodri in the back. I don't want to, like, argue and harp on this point. But it's just like, I think that they will have struggles without Rodri, losing a key player. But... I don't think they've lost any type of momentum or any type of speed in terms of like how they're playing right now.
I feel like they just like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I do feel like they're going to dip because of the leadership that he brings to the table. On top of that, the vision that he has, I don't see. But I do agree that they dip in form, but like how much they'll dip in form. That's what I was trying to bring up right now. Because, yeah, they are already phasing out and they did well without him. If they can cope, essentially any team that's going to lose a key player like that is inevitably going to lose some sort of form or not, maybe dip, but it depends on how much they dip. You know what I mean? They might not dip too far off that they won't pull off wins and continue their momentum. They've done well without him. So I don't, if especially now that you said they're phasing out, but inevitably for any team, when it comes to a key player, especially in his position, I think it's inevitable because why they might dip in form is they lose that option. Essentially, at the end of the day, they lose that option no matter what. So if they're playing a certain way and a team's adapting to them, now they don't have the option of saying, "Oh, let's put Rodri in," or "Oh, let's start with Rodri and now like do a double pivot to throw the team off." They lose an option. So it's going to be, they might not, like, you're right.
I think it doesn't,
all the way.
I don't think they dip in form, but I think what you've alluded to, and I think is actually brilliant, is a brilliant point is, well, now Pep doesn't have one of the key tools that was in his tool belt. That, I think, is a key there, right? When you go to your workshop and you have all your tools, he's now lost his power drill. And, like, you can still get work done without a power drill, but it's way harder. And even though all of the work has been being done without the power drill up till now, is that sustainable? It's 38 games in the Premier League. It is a whole new set of games in the Champions League. And they're already starting on the back foot in the Champions League. I thought this year, and I still believe this, that the Champions League was going to end up being Real Madrid or Manchester City's. That's it. Those are the only two teams that I look in the Premier League, in the Champions League, that I think can win it. Bayern Munich is slowly but surely starting to convince me that they should maybe be in that conversation. I'm not there yet. But it's those three teams.
Right, one game is not going to convince us on Bayern Munich yet.
Of course not.
But they're doing well, and they're in form.
Yes. So now the question, leaving the Premier League and going into the grander scheme of things. Or I guess the big picture of things. If City do struggle, if they start seeing a dip in form, if they can't keep up, and you maybe see the likes of Liverpool, who are 1 point back, start to catch up and even take over, or Aston Villa, who's 1 point back, catch up and start to take over, or Arsenal, who have 2 draws, they're 2 points back. But let's say that Odegaard comes back and they get back into their form. If those teams find their form again, and the Rodri impact has as much time or has as much things going on, and you take into consideration the 115 charges and maybe that starts looking badly, is this the beginning of the end of Manchester City? And I think that that's really dramatic.
For this season?
Maybe for the club. Like, what happens if Pep leaves?
And then we talk about, I'm pretty 100% sure that this is Pep's last year.
I'm at 99.8% with you on there. I'm at 99.8. I think this is his last year as well. And you just lost the most important player to his tenure there.
For sure. And
you get all the rumors that Real Madrid have been interested in Rodri and all of the... You start to see these breadcrumbs of, well, this is KDB's last year probably. This is Bernardo Silva's last year probably. There's already conversations that Haaland is looking towards La Liga and he's looking towards Real Madrid and Barcelona as possible next stops. Like, again, this is really, really dramatic. But is this beginning of the end of Manchester City?
There has to be a team, and for me it's Arsenal, but it's I also, when I say Arsenal, it's more me having hope because I feel like they're the closest thing that can come there aside from Liverpool, because Liverpool are the other team.
It's one of the 2 teams in red. Like, it has to be. It's Liverpool. If you're anti-City winning the league, you have to be an Arsenal or a Liverpool fan. And I'm not going to root for Arsenal, so I'm going to root for Liverpool. And I don't even like Liverpool all that much. Right. But it's still one of those things of, if you don't want City to win it, you got to hope that one of those guys win it. And I think a very, very important thing that we have to really, really pay attention to is going to be their next couple of games. They obviously play Watford the day that this podcast comes out. They play Watford. And on the weekend, they play Newcastle. And while Watford might not be the best competition for them, right? EFL team, it's a second division team, so we're not going to really see the ones. That Newcastle game on the weekend, that's an important game because Newcastle's they're not a bad team. They're not a team of chumps. You know what I mean? Right now they sit 6th. So
Newcastle is a team that has invested a lot of money into their project. They are a good team. They stand pretty. I mean, they stand 6th in the Premier League. That's not bad. 3 wins,
a draw and a loss.
Only 1 loss. Yeah, that's going to be a tough game. And I feel like that's where we need to play very close attention to how well they do against Newcastle. Because how well they're going to do against Newcastle is going to define a little bit of how they're going to play the next few games against important opponents.
Yes.
Because Newcastle is a significant, fairly important opponent. And so that's going to be a key game for them. And I think that, like, yeah, I just really genuinely feel like they lose a big option there. And though they can adapt, because City can adapt, they lose an option. And if they play a team that, if they continue to play the double pivot, because they're not going to be able to play a single pivot without Rodri. They're just not. It's not viable. They're going to continue to play the double pivot. Teams are going to pick up on the way that they're playing with the double pivot, and then you lose. Feel like you lose a lot. You lose a lot there, and we'll see. I think
this is where Pep proves that whether or not he's the best manager in the world, right? This is it. This is it.
I'm gonna give you a heart to heart take, because I'm trying to be logical in my take.
Of
I don't
course.
want to be. I don't want to sound like I'm coming from the heart. I love Pep. Pep's a great coach. It's just been too many years. You saw him against Arsenal. He was pissed, man. He kicked the bench.
Yeah,
So
he's
mad. I
mad. He
have
should
not
be
seen
mad.
Pep. I have not seen Pep be that upset in a long time. And I'm not saying he's losing the dressing room. The dynamic in City is the same. But for Pep, the stars truly have to align. He's a good coach, but the stars have to align, just like they did when he won the treble, for him to do well. And right now, the stars aren't aligned for him. He's got a lot of problems losing Rodri right now.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see ultimately with how
That's a hard
all of
take.
this
That's
thing
a
is
hard
gonna
take
go.
because,
See if we're
and
we'll
I'm not saying that because I don't want City to win, because I don't, right? Because I'm tired of, I've told you this before, I'm tired of seeing City win. I love City. I love Pep. Tired of seeing them win. I just feel like he's missing a lot and he's frustrated, and you can see that. And I don't know if he's going to be able to pull this one off. I genuinely don't. Even then, I still think he's a great coach, but I don't see him pulling this one off. And I told you that in the beginning of the season. I just don't see it. But now with this injury, like that kind of backs up my statement. Even though I never predicted the injury, I said that they were going to dip, that they weren't going to be as motivated this season, which isn't true to the extent because they looked very motivated these past 5 matches. But I had a feeling that Pep was going to struggle this season. And now this is the sign. He's going to struggle this season because he lost one of the key players.
I get where you're coming from, and I understand that it's a hard take, but I think that it's a hard take that you're just
Yeah, it's just a
this
hard
is
take.
I the way that I
This
look
isn't
at it,
logic.
and I go I don't see I still see City as the best team in the Premier League. I still see it not being all that close. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that the two worst games that City have had this year in the 6 games that they have played, both times Rodri started. And I'm not putting that on Rodri. That is not what I am saying. But Haaland has 10 goals in 5 games in the Premier League. That is unprecedented pace. Like, it is absolutely insane. And if he keeps that up, he's on pace to score 75 plus goals this year in the Premier League alone. It's not including what goals he might score in the the EFL Cup or the FA Cup or in the Champions League. Like,
Yeah.
Haaland is pissed and motivated. That team is motivated.
Let's play.
But we're not talking about Haaland. We're talking about City with the loss of Rodri. And so, like, my thing is this: is I think I'm gonna hold off my judgment on what's gonna happen over the next 2 to 3 games. That is what I'm going to really, really hang my hat on, because that to me is what's going to matter. How do they play in their next Champions League match? How do they play against Watford? How do they play against Newcastle? How do they play against Fulham and Wolves and Southampton and Bournemouth? Like, how does the team look now that Rodri's not an option? Now that Rodri's just a substitution away? Because I do think that does impact how Pep is going to manage the game. But they have been absolutely dominating and disrespecting teams up and down the pitch all year long. And so my final thoughts are, I'm going to take the Arsenal game as an outlier until I'm proved that it's not. And that is the best way for me to take it. Because that team, you saw it. Pep, you brought it up. Pep was absolutely furious at the end of that game. And
He could barely even, and so was Holland. But
yeah, absolutely. Like,
all of the rest of that on Thursday.
yeah.
But yeah, and so I kind of want to just finish it off here. And
Yes,
say,
absolutely.
please let us know what you guys think in the comments. Let us know how you guys feel about Rodri. Do you guys think City could bottle their rest of their season because of this? Is this a bottle season injury? Let us know in the comments what you think. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you want more news from us. Thank you so much for everything, and peace.